race underway now. Predictably, Michael Schumacher leads away from Rubens Barrichello, but two Jordans are going to make a bit of a battle.
There's something strange about this video. This is the 2005 US Grand Prix. It was part of Formula One's desperate attempt to break into the American market. But it failed spectacularly. Only 6 cars started a race. And it was called a low point in Formula One history. 20 years later, Formula One has been revolutionized. There are now 3 races a year in the United States. What was once seen as an elite European sport now has American sponsors, American bosses, and American teams. The Las Vegas Grand Prix even earned more money than the Super Bowl. So, how did Formula One reinvent itself? It goes back to an $8 billion gamble, radical change, and a master plan to redefine the entire sport from the inside out. It would set the blueprint for how to take any sport global. But it didn't come easy. There were obstacles at every turn, an angry fan base, and the biggest challenge of all, turning America into a nation of Formula One fans. To understand the Formula One takeover of America, we have to go back to a company named Liberty Media. Liberty Media can be traced back to the early 1990s as part of Liberty Entertainment, known for some of America's most popular TV channels, like the Discovery Channel, BET, QVC, and E. But it had a growing interest in sport. In 2007, it gained control of the baseball team, the Atlanta Braves, in a deal worth almost $1.5 billion. And 7 years later, the name Liberty Media began to circulate among the world's most elite sport, Formula One. Liberty Media was an eager new buyer, and after months of negotiations, in 2017, a figure was agreed to. $4.4 billion in cash. That was enough to take a controlling share, and all told, with debts included, the entire deal was worth $8 billion. But it wasn't so obvious how Liberty Media would end up turning a profit. Formula One's global viewership and fan engagement were both falling. TV viewers had declined from 527 million in 2010 to 352 million in 2017. Sponsors were dropping out, and the older fan base was fading. Plus, it was in the middle of one of the most dominant periods in the sport's history. Mercedes had already won 3 Constructors' Championships and would go on to win 5 more. Results were becoming all too predictable, and the sport was considered boring. The future of Formula One was bleak, and the first obstacle standing in Liberty Media's way was its own fan base. Liberty Media knew Formula One had a distinct identity.
And we're going to work to understand the brand, we're going to polish it, we're going to elevate it, and it's going to be really central to what we do.
But traditionally, it had been known as an old boys club. It was described as the ultimate male fantasist sport. Fast cars, expensive kit, global jet setting, and beautiful women with spray-on smiles. And changing this was always going to be met with resistance. First, the logo was changed. Then, grid girls were dropped from races. These were promotional models used by brands before races. Liberty Media was called a killjoy that was ruining the sport. Whether fans liked it or not, change was coming. New aerodynamic regulations were going to be introduced. A budget cap would limit teams from spending too much, and engine regulations would be simplified to reduce costs. These were all designed to make F1 more competitive and end boring races. But Liberty Media needed to address the marketing. It needed to sell Formula One. A strategy was developed, made up of 3 goals. Number 1. Take the sport into the digital world. Number 2. Repackage Formula One for the average viewer. And finally, number 3. Bring F1 to the United States. First, Liberty Media needed to catch F1 up to the modern age. Sports leagues were finding they needed to have an online social media presence to stay relevant. Getting a tag trending on Twitter could translate to millions of viewers. But F1 had been slow to adapt. Bernie Ecclestone, who led Formula One for 3 decades, believed that social media was short-lived and would quickly fade away. He had banned teams or drivers from doing their own filming on track in the pit lane or inside the paddock, which is the exclusive area where teams and staff work. This all changed with Liberty Media's takeover. Those restrictions were abolished, and straight away, teams started posting their own content of their mechanics, drivers, and motorhomes. F1's digital presence exploded. On YouTube, the subscriber count jumped from less than 250,000 to almost 2 million in just 2 years. Views jumped by over 1,400%. Across all social media platforms, Formula One became the fastest growing major sport in the world. Younger drivers drove new engagement by live streaming their simulation racing to millions of viewers, giving fans unprecedented access. People could message and communicate with Formula One drivers in real time for the first time ever. It went hand in hand with an esports series launched soon after Liberty Media's takeover. Liberty Media was playing the long game. It accepted a loss of $37 million in 2017 and then $68 million in 2018. But by early 2019, its strategy was starting to pay off. Revenue had jumped more than 18% to $2.02 billion. It turned a profit for the first time in 3 years. However, the fanbase still wasn't growing as expected. Just 14% of viewers were under the age of 25. Despite huge campaigns on social media, the average age was 40. There was still a disconnect between potential new fans and the sport. Something powerful was needed to ignite passion, to make the stars brighter and tell the stories in the sport that people could understand. F1 needed to go viral. In early 2019, a game changer came along. It was called Drive to Survive, a 10-part Netflix series taking viewers behind the curtain of Formula One, hearing from drivers and team principals, learning about the dramatic rivalries and what was really at stake. The series was an immediate hit. Netflix's figures at the time were private, but it did reveal that Drive to Survive had made it into the top 10 in 56 different countries. Seasons 2 and 3 were given the green light. And in a year where it competed with shows like Stranger Things, The Crown, and Peaky Blinders, Drive to Survive beat them all to make it the #1 in the Netflix rankings. And the effects were being felt in the real world too. Around 80% of people who watched the series would go and watch a race. Even lesser-known people like the Haas team principal Gunther Steiner became celebrities overnight. Importantly for Liberty Media, popularity was beginning to improve in the American market. The year after Drive to Survive was released, tickets to the United States Grand Prix were up 15%. Drivers reported their American fanbase growing, and more than half of American Formula One fans said they began following it after watching the series. But America still needed a flashy new event to mark Formula One's new era. Liberty Media decided that it would be the 2022 Miami Grand Prix. Success there could tap into the most valuable market on earth, opening the door for American sponsorships. It was potentially a billion-dollar test run. The Miami Grand Prix organizers were careful to follow all of Liberty Media's guidelines. They were going after younger viewers, so the big sponsors were companies like Crypto.com and Red Bull. The atmosphere was promoted just like a music festival. Huge artists were booked like Post Malone, DJ Tiesto, and the Chainsmokers. The glitz and glamour attracted some of the biggest celebrities, the likes of Snoop Dogg, David Beckham, and Michael Jordan. On race day, the 2022 Miami Grand Prix became the most viewed F1 race in US history, with over 2.5 million people. It was a huge success. 240,000 people had attended over the weekend. It helped attract more than 73 million more Formula One fans that year, and the majority of that growth was young people aged 16 to 35. Plus, Miami set the stage for another stateside race the following year, this time in Las Vegas. That race cost $600 million to organize, but generated $1.5 billion for the city. That figure was $500 million more than that year's Super Bowl. Liberty Media had well and truly cracked the American market. There were now 3 races in the United States. and American investors were convinced. Today, an American company owns 33% of the McLaren team, an American company owns Williams, and Haas is an all-American team. In the last few years, AT&T and Budweiser have been major sponsors, as well as companies like CrowdStrike, Dell, Coca-Cola, Tommy Hilfiger, and FedEx. And it's no wonder why American money has found its way into the sport. The average F1 team is now worth a staggering $2.3 billion. Liberty Media took over an $8 billion gamble. The value of Formula One is now estimated to be around $18 billion, more than doubling that investment. But the genius has been opening up a sport that once thrived on exclusivity, giving fans access to drivers like never before, taking them behind the scenes, and using new platforms to break open the key American market. But America is only one side of the coin. While Formula One had been taking the world by storm, one country in the Middle East has been quietly spreading and invading the paddock. Its tentacles spread through motorsport, boxing, golf, and football, offering staggering sums of money. To find out exactly how Saudi Arabia is taking over sport, click the thumbnail on the screen now.